Hello everyone, Justin Silber Turbos. Today we're going to install a turbo kit on a brand new 2019 Polaris Patriot 850. So this video is just a step-by-step instruction video on how to put the Silber Turbo kit on this machine. Okay, to start I want to show you everything that's going to be in the turbo kit. So these are going to be all the components that come in the box when you order the turbo kit from us. So to start, the turbocharger assembly, which includes the turbocharger itself, the exhaust piping, and the wastegate. The cold air intake, so this adapts to the stock hood plenum and feeds fresh air to the turbocharger. Intake elbow for the cold air intake. The new injection molded air box, this replaces the factory air box, and there'll be a charge tube that connects from the turbocharger to the new air box. That silicone charge tube I was just talking about. Oil line, so this is going to go from the factory oil injection pump to feed oil to the turbocharger. 2 billet throttle body adapters, so these are O-ring fitted to the throttle bodies, which will help secure the new air box to the throttle bodies. Primary and secondary clutch springs. Adjustable weights. A few extra exhaust springs, and the extra boost springs for the wastegate of the turbo. Moving back over to the snowmobile itself, we've got to tear it down, get it ready to put all the new turbo components back on. So we're going to remove the side panels, the hood, the muffler, the air box and intake system, a few other components. So we'll get started, get this tore down, and get it ready to put the turbo kit on. Okay, got the sled all tore apart. Just a quick little overview of all the components we removed. So, part of the intake track, both these components, all the extra exhaust springs, the EGT sensor that was in the factory muffler, secondary clutch, primary clutch, the 2 coolant hoses that run through the throttle bodies. So one goes from the coolant bottle to the throttle body, the other one from the throttle body up to the cylinder head. Both these are removed. The coils, which were mounted on the factory air box, the dash and intake system of the hood, factory muffler, and the factory air box, and of course the side panels and hood which are on the floor. Alright, there's a few extra parts we have to remove. So there's a few pieces of foam behind these vents in the intake system. Just remove the 2 torque screws. That'll allow you to pull this vent out. And simply remove a little plastic holder from the foam. Once you have that removed, just put the vents back in. Okay, moving on to the turbo kit components. We're going to start with the new turbo air box. This comes with silicone couplers and clamps installed on it, the new 3-bar map sensor. We will not use a factory map sensor anymore. This is actually going to replace a factory one. So what you want to do is take this air box and mount the ignition coils on it. So simply take your ignition coils that we removed earlier, using the factory bolts that mounted the coils, the factory air box. We'll install the coils onto the new turbo air box. Be careful. Don't have to go too tight, just snug them up a little bit. You don't want to strip out the holes. Now the air box is ready to be installed on the snowmobile. Okay, over to the snowmobile. Now we're going to double up the exhaust springs on the Y-pipe. So we're going to take the 2-inch springs that we removed off the factory muffler and install an extra spring onto each tab on the Y-pipe. So each spring tab needs to have 2 springs. So I'll go ahead and put these on. All right, moving on to the throttle bodies, we're going to install the new billet throttle body adapters. I already got the first throttle body adapter down there on the throttle body. As you can see, the tab is up. It kind of goes around the factory tab on the throttle body. Once you get it on, you'll just attach it and secure it with the supplied socket head bolt. The O-ring in there, it's nice to lubricate it up with either some grease or 2-stroke oil. That's usually what I use. Just dip my finger in the 2-stroke tank and rub it around that O-ring quick. Let's get them on. Just secure them down with the bolt. Snug them with a wrench. Next, we're going to install the new turbo air box onto the throttle bodies. Just fit the air box into the sled. Once you've done that, simply fasten it with the supplied clamps. Once you have the air box all secure and fastened into place, reconnect the spark plug wires to the spark plugs, plug in the coils back into the factory harness. They're color coded white on white, blue on blue. Then also plug in the connector to the new 3-bar map sensor located in the air box. Next, we're going to put the silicone charge tube onto the air box. We're just going to fit it onto the air box without clamping it in place for now. That way, once we get the turbocharger assembly in, we don't have to fight it between the turbo assembly and the air box itself. So just slip it onto the air box and leave it there for now. I recommend using some kind of either like soapy water or something to lubricate the charge tube up. It's quite a tight fit. Next, we're going to install the turbo coolant lines. The one with the 90-degree fitting is going to get installed onto the coolant tank. Slip it over the barb. Fasten it with the clamp. You're going to get these clamps from the factory lines that you took off of the hoses that ran from the coolant bottle to the throttle body. Just reuse the factory clamps. Set that one out of the way. The next line, go on with the straight fitting, is going to go through the chassis over to the cylinder head and it's going to fasten to the port on the cylinder head. Alright, we're almost ready to install the turbo assembly. First, before we do that, we have to cut about 1/3 of this rubber cushion that supported the factory muffler. We just have to cut a ring all the way around it and remove 1/3 of that piece off the front side here. So just take a knife and cut all the way around it. Then we're going to remove that. Now we're going to install the turbocharger assembly. We got the grommet cut back on the hanger bracket. Take the turbocharger assembly. Once you have the turbo in place, connect the 2 5/8 springs from the turbocharger to the factory pipe. Again, 2 springs on each tab. You'll want to go and hook the coolant lines up to the throttle or to the turbocharger. So the coolant line with the 90-degree fitting is going to go to the outside of the turbocharger, and the straight fitting will go to the inside of the turbocharger. Once you have the turbo all in place, make sure you reinstall the EGT sensor into the turbo muffler. Screw it into the bung that's welded in the muffler. Tighten with a 17mm wrench, and then connect the electrical connector. Now we'll want to fasten the hose clamps for the charge tube. There's one on the airbox here, the other one on the charge tube coming out of the turbocharger. And before you fasten them, you'll want to move the charge tube around and position it so it's not going to rub on any hoses or wires. And then once you have it held in position, just fasten the clamps. Okay, next step, we're going to install the cold air intake silicone elbow. So this is going to get installed onto the inlet of the turbocharger. You can see the one side has a little jog in it. That side with the jog is actually going to be the side that goes on the turbocharger. So just slip it over the turbocharger and then fasten it with the supplied hose clamp. Right, now we're going to install the hood plenum back on the snowmobile. Remember earlier we removed the foam and plastic pieces behind these vents. So if you didn't do that previously, make sure you do it now before you install this piece. And this is fastened back down with the factory torque screws and 2 push darts. Next we're going to install the cold air intake. This is going to go from the hood plenum over to the silicone intake on the turbocharger. Simply put the one end in the silicone, put the other end on the airbox. Then you'll fasten the 2 tabs with the factory push darts and then tighten the hose clamp on the silicone. Okay, to the clutching, got the primary clutch. Basically you're going to disassemble this, install the new adjustable clutch weights. And the nice thing about these clutch weights is they're actually adjustable in the clutch. Once you have them installed, you never have to take them back out of the clutch to adjust them. You can just, through the heel of the weight, use the supplied set screws that come with the weight kit and add or take away weight. So install the primary spring in the primary clutch, reassemble that, and install it back on the machine. Secondary, pretty simple. Take the helix out, replace the secondary spring, put it back together, and reinstall it on the machine. Okay, one of the final steps, we're going to get the sled down off the lift, actually tip it on its side to remove the pan on the bottom of the bulkhead to install the oil line that's going to run up to the turbocharger that'll feed the oil directly to the turbocharger. So if you don't want to tip the sled on its side and remove that bottom pan, you can, when you have the air box off, remove the throttle bodies from the motor, and you can get down to the oil pump that way. But personally myself, I like to just drill the rivets in the bottom of the bulkhead and remove the pan. Okay, I got the sled on its side. What I'm going to do is drill these 4 black rivets out, and then there's like 10 of these gold colored rivets. We got to remove this aluminum pan here. So drill these rivets, and then we're going to apply some heat because it's actually glued on. So, and then it'll pop right off. So go ahead and drill the rivets. Okay, now that we have access to the oil pump, we're going to install the oil lines. So first off, we're going to remove 2 of these lines from the pump. And you can see that the smaller molding on the pump, these 2 lines I have in my hands here pointing at, those are the low flow lines. Those are the ones we're going to want to remove from the pump. We're going to tee both of those together and then connect it back to one of the low flow ports. It doesn't matter which one, just as long as you connect it back to the pump. So cut the clamps off. Okay, I got both the low flow oil lines off the pump. I'm going to install the new oil line tee. Once the tee is installed, I'm going to use a syringe with the 2-stroke oil and inject about 10 milliliters of oil just to get the air bubbles out of that line. After I prime the line with oil, I'm going to connect the line, the tee back to the oil pump. And then secure it to the pump with the supplied clamp. After installing the oil line tee, next we're going to install the turbocharger oil line. So first off, you want to take your syringe again and prime this line with oil. Once you have the line primed with oil, install it through the chassis up to the turbocharger, and then you'll connect this end to the oil pump. Again, connecting it to one of the low flow ports of the pump. Once you get the oil lines installed, you can go ahead and reinstall the plate in the bottom of the bulkhead with the supplied rivets. Got the machine back upright, the turbo oil line ready to be installed on top of the turbo. Before we install it on the turbo, take your syringe, inject about 5 milliliters of 2-stroke oil right into the turbocharger. This is going to prevent the turbocharger from running dry when you first start it up, before the oil pump catches up and feeds oil to the turbocharger. Once you prime the turbocharger, connect the oil line to the top of the turbocharger and fasten it with a 9/16 wrench. Okay, the install is almost done on this new Patriot. One of the last things would be the ECU. So if you bought the turbo kit from one of our qualified dealers, they'll be able to reflash your ECU in-house. If you ordered it direct right from our website and purchase a reflash cable, again, you'll be able to download to the ECU from your own laptop. Or if you simply want to just remove the computer, mail it to us, we'll flash it and ship it back to you. It only takes about 2 minutes to flash this ECU, and same day turnaround most of the time. The day we get it, we'll flash it, mail it right back to you, so you don't have much downtime. Alright, that's it. Turbo kit's all done, installed, ready to go ride. We do recommend, your first ride, take it easy a little bit. Open the side panels a few times throughout the ride, check your hoses, all your lines, everything, make sure nothing's rubbing and all your connections are tight, all your fittings are tight. So other than that, thanks for the business and have fun.